Come on. Maybe sleeping with the heater on is a good idea to sleep better. Sleep good, sleep good. Hack your sleep, suckers. Okay. Kind of vibe out with my best friend, Michael Saylor. TNN's 3 years, 1 month old. Could always see Bitcoin. Good job, my Thomas. Good job, good job.
Economic strategy. Bitcoin gives you that foundation, and you can use it to protect your family, relocate anywhere, change your career, create a legacy, accumulate more assets, accumulate wealth, plan for the future. You know, if you ask me, before Bitcoin, if you asked me, how are you going to create or fund your foundation for the next 100 years? I would have said something like, I guess I'd give all my money to Wall Street and I'll hire some good money managers. And 70 years from now, the grandson of someone that I hired today might go to college, figure out what to do, and day trade or shuffle my money around so I don't lose it. That's the best idea. It's not a good idea, right? That's how the Rockefellers do it, right? But you know, what you'll see is that 100 years after someone actually accumulates some wealth, the money's generally gone 99% of the time. And what Bitcoin offers to families is the ability to actually plan for your great-granddaughter and think that maybe there'll be some support for them. And no one is going to take it from them. One of those investment companies need Bitcoin, right? They need Bitcoin to attract capital. You see it happening, $600 million flowing into BlackRock yesterday, $10 billion in a month. Right, if you look at the ETFs, what you'll see is that the Bitcoin ETFs are falling up past all the commodities. They're about to eat the gold ETFs, and then they're going to eat the S&P 500 index ETFs. And when that happens, everybody's going to take note. Vanguard is going to take note. Right? The world is going to change. You can't attract capital without Bitcoin, and you can't outperform. Bitcoin is going to outperform the S&P and gold and bonds. And as it outperforms, everyone who's indifferent, objective, who doesn't know what it is and doesn't care, right? They're going to just say, move more of my money over here, because the world's full of people that would just like to not lose their money. Right? And so what we're going to see is investment companies need this to outperform, and that's going to result in them generating income, and that results in them staying relevant. Right? I mean, how many people are bragging about their, new gold ETF? Right? It's not relevant. It's not relevant. You want to be a leader, right? The people that we look to are the people that discovered or created Google and Apple and Microsoft, and they create the next airplane, and they put Starlink in the sky, and they give us internet, and they give us the next phone, right? Be relevant, be a leader. These companies want to be leaders. Right? You won't find a CEO that says, my aspiration is to be viewed as a follower and late to the next great thing. And they all want to create shareholder value, right? You can't create shareholder value by shrinking. And so that takes us to operating companies. It's the same thing. But operating companies, for the most part in the world, are like type 1 diabetics. I had 100 competitors over 20 years. They all failed. There's a 99% mortality rate with these companies, right? You look at the number and you're like, well, I don't know 300 million companies. That's because they're failing millions every single month. They're all failing all the time. Why are they failing? They can't store energy. They can't harness capital, right? What does Facebook do? They give all their capital back to the shareholders in a dividend and a buyback. What does Apple do? They give their capital back in a dividend and a buyback. They take on debt. How do companies fail? They leverage up. They take on debt. What happens when you fail? Well, I used to say to people, well, we have 500 million in capital. We could go for 40 quarters. We could go for 10 years and not make any money, and we'll still be in business. It's like you could go for 10 years and not eat and still be alive. That's indestructible. On the other hand, when you give all the money back and you borrow $1 billion, well, in that case, you end up with a debt covenant, and you have to generate $27 million this quarter. And if you generate $26 million this quarter, if you miss by one 1/1000th of your capital structure, if you by 0.1%, you actually trip all the debt covenants and the bank owns you. You're technically in violation of your debt. They can call the loan, you're insolvent. So think about the difference between you starving to death if you miss one meal versus you starving to death when you haven't eaten for the year. Okay, that's the difference between having capital and having no capital. The status quo in the world today is we tell people you can't keep capital in an operating company because all of the uses, all the liquid capital is diluted and it doesn't beat the cost of capital. Bitcoin solves the problem. You can harness capital, you can grow your revenues, you can beat inflation for the first time. You know, there's the Magnificent Seven are good investments. The other 493 companies are not, because the other 493 companies cannot beat inflation. Because beating inflation means increasing your cash flow 8% every year forever. Or more like raising your prices 10% a year forever. Who can do that? A digital monopoly, a company with no cost, with monopoly pricing power. How many of them are there in the world?
Your fee is 10% year over year forever. Monopoly pricing, comma, zero operating cost.
There's like 1 in 10,000 companies that you would know of and 1 in 1,000 public companies. Okay, so these companies, the ones that you might be afraid of, they're not winning, right? They're struggling the same way, and Bitcoin is a lifeline for them. That you could think of them as wage slaves in the same way that you are a wage slave. Everybody is working, having to get 10% more every year just to keep ahead of inflation. It's just theirs is in revenue and cash flow. And so what does Bitcoin offer them?
Wage, slave, comma, revenue, and capital.
Extended lifespan. You see a CEO and you say, well, are you going to adopt Bitcoin? He says, why should I? Say, well,
extend your lifespan.
Might keep your company from going bankrupt in 10 years. It might allow you to continue to do business and serve your customers for the next 100 years. How many companies are 100 years old? Not many. I'll ask you another question. How many famous education institutions with endowments are 100 years old? Most of them. Why is it that universities last 100 years and companies don't? No capital. That's why. You think anybody goes in business wanting to die? You think they want to have their company fail in 12 years or 6 years or 25 years? No, they're stuck in a system. Right? They're stuck in a traditional system that makes them do this. Banks have the same issue. They want to attract and retain capital. They want to decrease risk. You know, you could say, well, you know, the bank is beholden to the central bank. Well, here's another vision. What about 100,000 banks that are all tapped into the Bitcoin network and they don't have to worry about the Bitcoin network shutting them down? Right? When a bank joins Bitcoin, it becomes systemically robust, much more anti-fragile. This is a benefit, right? They would like to find a way to do this. This will decrease their earnings, let them create shareholder value, let them delight their clients. They have 1 billion customers. They have corporations. They need to serve them. All of these companies, all of these nonprofits, they all need the bank to support what they do. In time they will. The nonprofits are also going to benefit. They want to raise capital, but also they have endowments. They want their endowments to go up 40% a year, not go up 4% a year. Right? There's nobody running a church, a charity, a benefit, a school that'll say, we don't want our endowment to appreciate and we don't want an endowment. This allows them to harness technology. This allows them to extend their reach globally. You know, Bitcoin is money that's global, and it's got a half-life of forever. All of these endowments, they're using money that has a half-life. Life of 10 years or 5 years. Your property might have a half-life of 20 years. Their investments are short duration. And their investments are local, right? Their property is local. So Bitcoin stretches your scope across time and space. Now tell me, what charitable pursuit doesn't want to do more? Last forever. They all do. Right? You won't find anyone that says, well, we just want to be out of business in 3 years. So Bitcoin's the solution to nonprofits. And for governments, traditionally people have thought, well, the government doesn't like or won't embrace Bitcoin. But they will embrace Bitcoin because Bitcoin provides them with the financial power to thrive in the 21st century. And there's no government on earth that doesn't appreciate the power of money. Right? This will allow them to lower taxes. It will allow them to strengthen their currencies, defend their...
All governments like money. Who doesn't want to last forever? ?
Sovereignty, improve their economies, join the global community, and delight the citizens. And if you talk to any politician, there's none of them that will say these aren't agenda items for them. And if you say, well, could you achieve that with infinite money? They'll say, well, I don't know if I can achieve it, but it'll make it a lot easier, right? Well, how about if I just took all your money away from you in 5 years? Would that make it easier or harder? The answer is, it would make it somewhere between hard and impossible. So now I get to the important part of my talk. This is where you come in. Ask not what Bitcoin can do for you. Ask what you can do for Bitcoin. Bitcoin needs you. That's the reason. If you're wondering why you're here because Bitcoin needs you. And my deepest hope is when you leave, you'll leave empowered, inspired, and enabled to go do good for Bitcoin wherever you go back to after you leave Madeira. I can't stress this enough. Everyone you encounter is an opportunity to improve the world by gaining their support for Bitcoin. Your customers, your employees, your boss, your investors, your clients, the mayor, the coach on the team, the parents at the PTA meeting, the teachers of your kids, the doctor at the hospital, your dentist, everybody you run into is an opportunity. And what we can do collectively that'll make the biggest difference is spread to people, right, the knowledge of Bitcoin. Is like, if you knew that drinking dirty water would kill you, you would tell people you love to stop drinking it. If you knew antibiotics could save their life, you would tell them about your experience. When it comes to this, and I've got the orange pill here, and we talk about orange pilling, but I break it down in two different cycles, right? First of all, everybody you meet has an intellectual perspective on Bitcoin. Okay, and they're going to click through these 5 gears. The first perspective is denial. Bitcoin is a scam. It's tulip bulbs. It doesn't exist. It's a ghost, a mirage, a pyramid scheme. And if we convince them that, I would show them a picture of all the Bitcoin miners in the world and say, oh, look, there's like hundreds and hundreds of data centers burning more gigawatts of electricity than the U.S. Navy. This is not a scam. This is the most powerful computer network in the world. And we want to get them from denier to skeptic. The skeptic.
The most powerful computer network in the world. Because money is involved, question mark?
Is, okay, I get it. Bitcoin may be a good thing, but it's too good to be true. The government's going to ban it. You hear that a lot. Okay, it's good. I get it. But someone's going to take it away from you, the skeptic. And what you have to then show is, well, if the government was going to ban it, they wouldn't be bragging about having captured 3 billion of it and selling it in the open market. Right? Nor would they have approved an ETFs, nor would they be fighting over who gets jurisdiction over it. Right? And we need to move you from denier to skeptic. And then the next step, we take the trader. Okay, well, maybe I guess I might buy sell it. I don't, I'll buy it if it's going up. I'll sell it if I think it's going down. I don't have an opinion. But look, that's a step up. And then hopefully they get to that next level investor. Bitcoin is great technology, just like Google, just like Apple, just like Microsoft, just like water and electricity, cars and planes are great technology. It's technology. It's the future. I should invest in it. You made a lot of money on the Magnificent Seven. How do you not own Bitcoin? Do you not believe in the Magnificent Seven? You think semiconductors won't make a difference? You don't believe in artificial intelligence? They have the same cycle. Once we get them to invest, or the last step intellectually is Bitcoin is an instrument of economic empowerment. And if Jack Dorsey's here, I give him a shout out. Jack Dorsey put that in my head. By the way, don't get dejected that someone may actually be a denier. You know who was a denier? Me. And you know what I became next? A skeptic. And then at some point, I looked and I said, the world's kind of messed up and interest rates are zero and my dollars are generating zero. I'm going to buy Bitcoin. And I became a trader. And then after I bought the Bitcoin, I started reading a lot more and listening to a lot more podcasts and thought about it. And I realized, no, I should be an investor. I would say when I got in there, when you started hearing about me, I was kind of at the investor stage. But it was everybody in this community and every Bitcoin podcaster and every writer and every educator that collectively got me over the line to becoming a maximalist, where I said, so I think you make a difference. You do make a difference, right? You're never going to see a collection of people like this at an Apple investor conference or at a Google investor or Microsoft investor or NVIDIA investor conference or a gold investor conference. This is very special. I like the orange. I'll marry the orange. When you're orange pilling, right, you're working people intellectually, but it's also spiritual. And they all start as observers. It's all the people writing about Bitcoin on Twitter, and they observe it. They don't know anything. And then they become participants, and then they start to actually buy and build on it. And maybe they're 1%. And then the believers say, wait a minute, this really is the best asset. And maybe 40% of my portfolio is liquid and my rest of my wealth is in my house. And so they go and they start to put a bunch of their liquid wealth into Bitcoin because they're believers. And then at some point, you get to be hardcore, and I'll call you an adherent. But then you're like all in. It's like the only thing I want to invest in. Well, I'm not saying you got to sell the ones you don't need. But this is a spiritual journey, and then at the final point, you become an advocate. And when you're an advocate, it's not just your all-in. You want to go tell other people. You want to convince your company, your charity, your church, your government, your friends, your family. You're an advocate. So think of this as a continuum, and we're working together to move people from the lower left quadrant, denier, observer. They're going to say, well, don't talk to me about Bitcoin. They know about it, but they don't talk about it. And you move to the upper right quadrant, you're a maximalist and you're an advocate. And, and you don't necessarily just stay there. We all got to work together to keep ourselves motivated to be in that quadrant, because it can be but I just leave you with this thought, right, which is Bitcoin grows with every new participant and anyone. You can say whatever you want about me, just spell the name right? Say the name right. Bitcoin. Right? When people are talking crap about Bitcoin, we're winning. When they're not sure about Bitcoin, we're winning. When they're liking it, we're winning. When they're debating something, we're winning, right? Bitcoin grows stronger. And I posted this yesterday. It's like Bitcoin.
Everyone who says the word quote Bitcoin in quote comma, the network grows stronger. Facebook initial IPO stock price and now. I remember when Facebook first thought of IPO coming out. 2012, about a year after I graduated college, period. I told everyone I knew, my best friends to invest in it, and now, almost 12 years later, it has increased by over a factor of 10x question marks. Similarly speaking, very, very easily, I can imagine 12 years from now, the price of Bitcoin is going to go at least 10x from here. Probably more.
think Adolf Hitler even got the idea from ancient Indian philosophy and manuscript Kana, and also interestingly enough, he also likened and talked about the Spartans and how they controlled the Helot race group. How is it that 5,000 Spartans can control a Helot population of 10 million fishermen?
trust, comma, trusting the stability of something, question mark.